All right, so for the region message, we just changed it. So let me go extemporaneously here a bit. The first thing is, it's what we want to do is build value for being a DM, right? So we're going to talk about bonuses. We're going to talk about the region trip. In January. We're going to talk about the national trip. We're going to talk about the future national trip, and we're going to just simply try to highlight every district manager with something that they're doing well. And in some cases, it's going to be multiple things that they're doing well. Right? That's one objective. The second objective is to kind of be a representative from the region who's kind of like offering just simply like almost like the presidential role, right? And then the other objective is to impart on them, on the representatives, just some basic like soft skills that are going to help them sell Cutco, but they're said in a way that they're not going to hear at a team meeting, right? And that hey, what you're doing in selling Cutco, you're learning how to sell, and that's something that really matters later in life. So whether you're selling Cutco or not, these are things that you want to be thinking about. How am I learning these skills? Okay, so the first several slides, probably 15 to 20 minutes is going to be recognition of the managers, right? If for some reason it's only 10 minutes, then you're going to spend a little bit more time talking about this, all right? And so what I've got here is the first slide is product conviction, right? Or the first point is product conviction, and one of the things that's really important, whether you're an attorney, okay, or whether you are a salesperson, if you're selling pharmaceutical or medical supplies or something, or if you have a product. I have a friend that invented the Bosu ball, right? The both sides up ball. At the gym, you've seen it for sure. It's flat on one side and round on the other side.
Yeah.
So he invented that, and he has product conviction. In other words, he was a really athletic guy in college, really fit, and then was like doing athletic training one day, and like recognized there was a need for this, and so that's what his business is today. And so you're having product conviction is going to matter because people can tell whether you believe in something or not. Okay, and most of what you convey to someone is non-verbally. Okay, so one of the keys that I have for you guys in being successful this summer and in life in general is you got to believe in what you're doing. Okay, and with Cutco, my advice to you guys is use your Cutco as much as possible. I didn't cook a whole lot when I started, but I would ask my mom to just cut stuff. And I had a representative one time. She and her roommate literally cut up everything in their dorm. It was like not dorm, but it was their college apartment. And like she literally cut up a belt, right? The other day my wife, and I'll tell the story. The other day my wife, we have a 2-year-old son. Maybe I'll throw a slide like, and he stuck the slinky. Somehow he got it all entangled in the soccer net, and so my wife literally like it was there for like 3 weeks. We couldn't get it out. Like we're grown adults, and we couldn't figure out how to get the slinky off the thing. So my wife grabbed the shears, cut through it, and ironically she posted on Facebook. But again, like your ability to have conviction really matters, okay? Because it's going to show non-verbally. Okay, so one of the ways that you need to have product conviction is price conviction, right? Do you believe Cutco's worth it? And if you don't believe Cutco's worth it, I would challenge your thinking about how you think about a cell phone, right? For me, again, a cell phone, I'm going to use a cell phone for a couple of years, and then I'm going to buy a new cell phone. And I'm not going to bat an eye about buying a new cell phone. I'll be bothered. I'll be upset. The other day, I almost lost my cell phone. Right? I left it in a cab, and I just forgot. Like I was not paying attention. And I left, and it was sitting there. And I was basically resigned to the fact that I was going to have to buy a new cell phone. Right? My point is, you need to have some price conviction. Second thing is you need to build rapport. Right? Building rapport is essential for anything. It's just something that you should be good at in general in life. Right? If you want to make more friends, if you want to meet a spouse, building rapport is important. And what are some tips to building rapport? Okay, number one is be a good listener. Right? So genuinely ask questions and be genuinely interested in what people have to say. So before you start the demo, right? Just put your sample kit on the ground and just talk to Mr. or Mrs. Jones. Ask them whatever you want to ask them about. If you're interested in being a doctor, ask them, hey, do you know anybody who's a doctor? At the end, I'll probably ask you if you can recommend me to people. That was one of my top representatives. That's what he did. Okay, and he got an inside scoop on what it was like to be a doctor. Oftentimes, it was from the spouse of the doctor, but a lot of times it was directly from the doctor. So how else do you build rapport? One of the things that you want to do is match their physiology, match their body language. So if they're sitting forward, you should sit forward. If they're kind of lean back, you should lean back. If they've got their arms crossed, you should cross your arms. Okay, so just be aware of how, even their tone of voice. If they're really loud, it's okay to be louder. If they're kind of quiet, be quieter. If they're using like polysyllabic words, use polysyllabic words. These are ways that you build rapport with people, right? And you're not building rapport for the sake of just making a better sale. You're building rapport because it's a good thing to do in life. You will also sell more Cutco, but it's also important to learn now because many of you are not going to sell Cutco for the rest of your life. Okay, and at the end of the day, you need to be, you need to. Your job when you're at a job is to get more clients. Okay, and the way to do that is by having people being willing to listen to you. And if they're willing to listen to you, right, then they're going to consider what your product is selling. Right? There's a saying that nobody cares what you know unless they know that you care. Right. The next one is just to simply add value. So you should always be looking to add value. Right. I had a representative that used to show up to his customers' houses. Now he was an FSM, so I'm not recommending you do this. He would show up with an iced tea all the time. Okay, Joe Scully. Mm-hmm. He would show up with an iced tea, and if the customer didn't like iced tea, that's great. But he just wanted to add value to that person's life, and that's what you should always be looking to do. Again, sometimes you're going to have a no sale, but if you can connect them to someone else, that'd be great. So in other words, you might do an appointment for someone who is like the home remodeler of your town. And you might end up with a no sale, but you might find out the customer is looking for a home remodeler, right? So you know what you should do? You should say, hey, by the way, Mr. or Mrs. Jones, I know this one person. So even if you make a no sale, it's just a good thing to do. In business, in the business world later in life, a lot of times, things come back to you, right? So it's like karma, right? So you should be looking to add value. One of the ways that you can add value while you're selling Cutco is to recognize that, most people can afford $250. And most people would have a use for $250 worth of Cutco. Not, some people have great knives, but they could use $250 of our accessories. Some people have an Ultimate, but they have a ton of Cutco, but they actually love Cutco so much they want to give it as a gift. But they're not going to give it as a gift unless you suggest it as a gift. Okay, so your job, once again, simply is to add value. And again, you guys can elaborate on all this, right? But at the end of the day, you should ask yourself, did I add value to that customer's life? Okay, and even again in your office, are you adding value? These are questions that you want to be asking yourself. Am I adding value to my manager? If you like and respect your manager, I'd be asking, how can I add value? Right. Next is you want to identify opportunities. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, you know what? Most of your customers have either a couple of knives that don't work really well, or they have, they like gardening, but they don't have gardening tools that work real well. You just want to be looking for opportunities. The other day I realized that I'm always looking for so I was at the gym, okay? I'm always looking to be inspired, and I'm always looking for opportunities. And I realized that literally this morning. There's this like really older guy who has a really serious limp, and you could tell he's got like a shoe that like has a much bigger heel. But that guy is busting his ass at the gym. He's like 70 something, I'm guessing. And to me, I'm inspired every time I see the guy. Like made me work out harder. And what I realized there is that I always actually look to find ways to be inspired. And so you've got to look at life as a series of opportunities. And I think this is a great skill to learn while you're at Vector. Because at the end of the day, customers are... I've never met a customer that didn't have a use or a need for Cutco. Now, there were a lot of times, though, that I was nervous about asking them to place an order because it felt out of place. But I'll tell you what, if they were my friend, what I would have said was, You got just do this. Just spend the money. And that's how you want to like approach your customers, though they're your friend. You want to approach them as though they're your mom or your aunt or your uncle or your grandma or your grandpa. And if you treat clients that way, if you treat your customers that way, what you're going to do is you're going to always give them a good deal. You're always going to look out for the opportunity for them. You're going to look out for the opportunity for you, and it's always going to be a win-win situation if you do that. Okay, so make sure you're looking out for opportunities. Same thing within your office. Look for opportunities. If you notice that your manager is kind of overwhelmed with work, ask them if they need help. You know what will happen? They'll probably give you some responsibilities. Next thing you know, you'll become an assistant manager. You'll be on pay, and the next thing you know, once again, you've improved your resume. So these are things that you should be doing again. And again, when you're a business owner, that's what your job is. Your job is to find a way for your service to fit that customer and client's needs. All right. The next thing you should do is AFTO. What does AFTO mean? It means ask for the order. Okay, guess what? You're not going to have anything happen that you want unless you ask for it. Okay, it's kind of like you're not going to hit a home run unless you step up to the plate. So it's really important that you guys recognize that, look, here's what happened on the Cutco appointment. Just tell me if I'm wrong on this. They like the way it cut the rope. They like the leather cut. They like the handle. They like the steel. They like the edge. They like the guarantee. What do they assume you're going to ask them at the end? Do you want to buy it? Right? That'd be like if I were, if I had a single friend and he met someone and he was like, she's super funny, she's intelligent, she's beautiful, she's, I respect her a lot as a person. I think she's, hilarious. She's a good conversationalist. Okay, and if this girl's friend heard about my friend, this is kind of a hard way of saying this, but if let's say Susie's friend Amy heard that my friend Bobby, said all this about the original person, right? This is a bad example, but like, it is a bad example.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But what do you
right.
think of
Okay, so the bottom line is like, if you know that they like it all, right? You should ask them if they want to get it. Like, you're actually doing them a disservice if you don't ask them. And you need to ask them if they want to get it. Now, here's the truth, you guys. Most of the time, they're going to say no to a homemaker. That does not mean that they don't want Cutco. It just means that they don't want a homemaker. It's kind of like I'd love to drive a Bentley, but it doesn't mean that I don't drive a car, right? Bentley's out of my price range right now. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're sitting down with a customer. The last thing you always want to do is make sure that you are asking for recommendations. Again, if you're a business owner later in life, you want to ask for recommendations. You want to ask, and you could ask in the Cutco way. In fact, one of my friends is a financial planner. He asks for recommendations at the end, and a lot of how he learned about asking for recommendations was in selling Cutco. And he's one of the more successful financial planners at his firm because he gets more clients from current clients than almost anyone else at his firm. Okay, and so what's really important you guys understand is, like, again, if they liked the product, they ended up buying it, they liked you, what do you think is going to happen when you leave? The next time they talk to their best friend, right? They're going to be like, oh my God, I just saw this nice young man, and he showed me these knives, and they were really cool, right? Isn't that what's going to happen? So they're going to talk about you. So you might as well just ask them right there for recommendations, right? And in asking for recommendations, again, it's not like you're asking them for their friend's social security number and alarm code and like where do they hide their key. Okay, what you're asking them to do is simply introduce you. In other words, if a customer were to be sitting down on an appointment and their friend literally walked into their house, do you think they would like stick a lampshade on your head and be like, this is a new lamp? Or would they actually say, by the way, this is Becca, right? She's a young college student, right? She's really doing a great job, and these knives are awesome. Don't you think they would do that? So that's all you're asking them to do. At the end of the day, you guys, your job when you're like working at a company or if you're a business owner, your job is always to make sure that you're adding value, and finding a way for your product or service to meet that customer's needs. Once you do that, it is perfectly reasonable, it's acceptable, and it's the norm to ask, is there anyone else that they might know? Okay, so again, these things we really think are going to help you guys. We're really excited to see you at the next event. again, thank you for letting me speak to you guys. Again, you guys have a great division. You guys are working with great managers, as you heard me talk about. So something like that.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.